Hello everyone, welcome to William and the Magic Box. Today on our show, we are going to have John. John is from New Jersey in the USA. So let's see what John has to say. Enjoy the interview. Hello? Yes.
There we go.
There
Okay.
you are.
Yeah.
How are you, John? You okay?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time to do the interview on Sunday morning. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
I'm glad we finally got the opportunity to do it because I know we had a little bit of a
We've been
mess.
trying. Yes. Okay, John. So how are you doing today? Have a good morning so far?
Yes, very much so. Yep.
Very good. So tell me, where are you from?
Originally, I'm from a town in New Jersey called Elizabeth, which is in North Jersey. I have since migrated down to South Jersey, so I live at the Jersey Shore.
The name of the place is Jersey Shore.
Well, I mean, it's a little town called Bayville, but I mean, this whole conglomerate of, strip that comes down off of New Jersey to the ocean side is where I live. So, yeah, it's really nice down here. It's very beachy.
I see. So what's the best part of living there?
I think it probably the beach, the ocean. There's a certain kind of vibe about living down here compared to the way that it used to be when I lived in North Jersey. North Jersey is very much New York, whereas down here it's more New Jersey people. So
I see. And how far are you from the beach?
probably about a mile.
Oh my God, you're so lucky.
It's nice. It's
Amazing. And what do you do for a living, John?
Well, I work for a major insurance company, and I work in their contracts division. So I work in the retirement end, so I deal with pension plans, both defined contribution and defined benefit plans. So, yep, that's been my mainstay for about 25 years now.
Wow, amazing. And before we start the journey, really in the Magic Box, I would like you to tell me something interesting about yourself.
Well, I mean, there's probably a couple of things. I think probably one of the biggest things, and a lot of my friends will say, is that I'm a big music fan, and I love music trivia. So I know a lot about 70s, 80s, and 90s music. So that's a big thing for me. I think that's probably the most interesting thing about me. It's hard to beat me in trivia with that.
Wow, I love that. Amazing. It's interesting you saying that because I moved to Europe when I was 19 years old from Brazil. And I was living in Portugal. And of course, at the time, 2002, like almost 20 years ago. And I remember at the time, like in Portugal, I was on my own. And that's how I started to listen to like music. Always been a big thing for me, music in my life as well. I love music. But the 80s. Yes. I never, oh my God, the 80s, just when I was in Portugal, I remember there was this channel, NV, I don't remember the channel. It was a channel that was showing a lot of the 80s music, like a lot. That's how I got to see, to know about Madonna's songs, Kylie Minogue, all those, not just the gay, but all like the Police. You know what I mean? Like a lot of songs like Billy Idol, ABBA. My God, I grew up like my dad. I remember my dad listened to ABBA, Elton John. Like my dad listened to ABBA. He's a truck driver, and I remember as a child that he was listening to ABBA all the time. Yes. But I didn't know. I mean, my first language is Portuguese. You know what I mean? So I tend to listen a lot of Portuguese music at the time. But when I was listening to those songs, I was like, my God. Then when I arrived in Portugal, was my best friend, was my company, like this TV channel. I was literally like listening to those. That's how I educate myself as well with the 80s, like with the artists as well, because of course, being, you know what I mean, my first language is not English. When you listen to songs sometimes back in Brazil, like as a teenager, as a child, for me, they were all the same. Or for me, I didn't have this conceptual difference between bands or singers or anything. For example, Madonna. I remember Madonna. For me, I knew who Madonna was, but I didn't know any song of her. Like, I didn't know names or anything. So when I would start watching the videos on the channels, like, oh my God, that's a song. I was listening. Oh, that's so different songs. I was fascinated. So for me, like, I'm so grateful that's this period of my life because it was my company. The 80s, in 2002, I must say, the 80s was my company for like a year until I got to you know what I mean, to get myself into it, the count. But for me, it was my company, watching those video clips of the 80s, not just the 80s, but the 70s as well. They show a lot of like the 70s, but for me, the 80s was like, wow, that was my big thing. So yeah, I'm a big fan as well. So nowadays, when I listen to the 80s, and I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 1982. So for me, it's like, you know, it's lovely. I'm so grateful for this period of my life because I educate myself a lot with the music as well, with the 80s and the late 70s as well, when ABBA started out and I started to listen to those songs. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And if I could ask you to pick, what's the best artist in the 80s? Like not the best, but the one that in your head like was, I'm sure it's a very difficult question, but which one would say, okay, that's when I think about the 80s, that's the artist that comes to my mind. Who would that be?
For me, it's two hair bands, because I was a big person into hair bands, because that, again, I grew up in that, not in the 80s per se. I grew up more in the 70s, but the 80s was my coming of age because I was a teenager. But Motley Crue and Def Leppard.
All right.
So whenever I hear any of their songs, or I see videos, or anything that has to do with either one of those bands, it just takes me back. It's like a transport machine. I go right back to the 80s again.
Amazing. Yeah, I just love it as well. I think it's sometimes I tell my friends, I wish I at least for a weekend, I would like to be my age in a weekend in the 80s, just to feel the vibe, just to see how things would be. I mean, the music at the time, there was not much electronic, it was much more, you know what I mean? Like commercial, they need to play it, they need to sing it, you know what I mean? So I think I wish to be at least one weekend, just to feel the vibe in the 80s with my age at the moment, just to have this privilege of feel the music at the time. So good, very good. Right, John, are you ready to go on a beautiful journey through your memories in life and to share your point of views?
Yes, I'm ready.
Amazing. So welcome to William and the Magic Box. I've got here my lovely box full of random fun questions. I'm just gonna play a song now, just for us. It's not the 80s, I'm afraid.
That's okay.
Or the 70s. It's a Brazilian song that I play sometimes that just gives me good energy. I'm gonna play a song just for us to get a bit the mood before the first question, okay?
Okay. Yep.
Let's do it. Hey John, ready for the first question?
Yes.
Before that, if there is a question you don't have an answer for, you don't want to answer, I always can change, okay? It's all very friendly, right?
Yep, gotcha.
First question for you is very easy. If you could be an animal, which one that would be and why?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. I would, only because I'm a dog lover and because I have two of my own. I mean, I would definitely have to say dog. And based on a bunch of different qualities, because of the playful nature, and because of the loyalty. Those are big things with me. Not that not all animals are like that, but there's something very specific about dogs and their relationship with other animals and humans, and the way that they really are termed man's best friend. So I would without a doubt have to say dog.
They do. They have this personality that's it's priceless. The way they show their love, the way they are so happy around you, like the way they show their happiness around. Sometimes when I go to the park for a run and I see those dogs like playing between, like along them in the park, for me it's like a therapy. For me it's like, my God, how beautiful is to see those dogs full of energy. You know what I mean? Just jumping around with it's just beautiful. For me it's like a therapy to watch them. I love it.
Very unconditional,
Yes, absolutely.
Yes,
absolutely.
We can learn a lot from them.
Yes, absolutely. Next question. Let's do it. You're saying about dogs in this Chinese astrology. I'm a dog.
Oh, I'm a monkey.
Really? Interesting. Oh, wow.
I watch that stuff too. Yes.
Very good. Right, tough question. If someone came up to you with an envelope, yeah, with your death date inside, would you open it or not? And why?
No, because I think it becomes very restrictive. I think if you know, I think I've read stuff about this before, you know, where people have imposed that question, and most people have said no. And I probably share the same sentiment with it in the sense that knowing just really gives you a time frame. And I think what you would do is you would try to cram everything in at one space and time to make sure that you were getting everything done. I think it's also rather depressing. I think when you know what is going to happen, you probably don't maybe have the same motivation. Maybe it goes the other way. You know, I actually just, and I know you know because I told you, but I just lost a friend to cancer, and you know, her timeline, you know, doctors never really know, but I think it kind of follows the same suit. You know, they give you a certain amount of time, and you know, you do want to cram things in, even though you know what your fate is going to be. But I think it can work good or bad. But I mean, ultimately, to answer your question, no, I wouldn't want to know. I want to live every day, and I want to live it to the fullest, and I don't want to have to think about when that time is going to come. Would rather it just be a surprise.
Absolutely. And I think as well, so you would be so paranoid thinking about as well, and you change your personality, you change your mood or the way you face life. And sometimes you don't take life anymore in a surprise way, like full of, you know what I mean? You kind of would just think about that every single day, and would be a bit frustrating to have that feeling every day.
Yes.
Yeah. Next question, John, let's do it. Right, before the next question, tell me, what do you like the most about your job?
Probably the same with any job that I've had, even prior. It's the people. And I really think that, you know, colleagues and people that you partner with, internal partners, external partners, they kind of make it much more than just a job. The work is the work. I mean, I think we all know that. And I think you kind of have to have a certain happiness about what you do for a living. But I think ultimately the people that surround you and the people that you work with are the binding force to maybe keep you in a situation where, you know, you could rather be someplace else. I think that's a lot of what makes people change jobs, is their environment and the people that they work with. I'm very happy with the people that I work with. I love them dearly. A lot of them have become very close friends. So, you know, and I wouldn't change that for anything. I mean, ultimately, you know, this is where I'm going to retire from. And yes, I'm heading towards that retirement age. So when I think about that, you know, it's a kind of a happy thing for me, because, you know, I want to leave my work where I was the most appreciated by the people that appreciated me, and I appreciated them.
I think they'll be very happy to watch this interview in the future and know that.
Yes, I hope so. I hope so.
For sure. Okay, next question for you is, what was your favorite thing to do as a kid?
Oh, we're going to go back to music again.
Hey!
Yes, one of my probably most fond moments is having a phonograph for the first time. I mean, and I still remember that. I remember my mom introducing me to that, and you know, back then it was records and albums and stuff and 45s, and you know, that's what I would spend a lot of my time doing. I think it gave me an ability to tune out the outside world. So, and I would get so ensconced in music and these bands and, you know, artists that's all I ever wanted to do. And it actually was part of the reason why I had kind of picked up guitar myself and kind of went that road where I thought that maybe I wanted to be a musician. So ultimately it was all about music. I mean, even a lot of my old childhood friends that I still talk to today, they laugh at me and they're like, you were the one that got me into this. You were the one, you bring your phonograph everywhere, and I would bring my records. Yeah. So it's a lasting memory of everywhere I go. Even today, you know, I take my music with me wherever I go. So.
Yep. Oh, that's amazing. That's good. That's great. I think music is like a therapy, isn't it? Even though sometimes when you are even when you are sad or melancholic for some reason, if you put a music on, you're gonna feel the melancholic or the sadness in a better way, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
You know what I mean? When sometimes when you are feeling so melancholic or sad, and you put this song that's gonna make you even more, but you enjoy it. You just enjoy it. It's just nice, the vibe, the feeling. You know what I mean? You
Yes.
suffer in a different way, in a better way, let's say.
I totally agree with that. I think it kind of brings you to another plane. People sometimes don't understand when I talk about that, or I say how I fade away, like I almost end up in a trance sometimes when I listen to some of the stuff that I listen to, because it does bring me to another place. So
I see. And I'm going to share something that happened to you a few days ago. I have a sister back in Brazil, and we are 3 years different. She's 3 years younger than me. And she doesn't show, she cannot show too much about her emotions, you know what I mean, her personality. But I just received a message from her the other day, this week actually, that she just made my day, that I wasn't expecting her to do it. She sent me a message saying, remember Lambada when it came along? Lambada in the 80s? Lambada?
Yes.
Anyway, so I remember growing up dancing Lambada every day, like we were dancing the whole Brazil. I remember all the kids, we were dancing Lambada every day. And she was at work, and this music came along on the radio or something, and she sent me a message. Oh my God, I just listened to the song now, and I almost cried. Remember, I was dancing Lambada at the time. I was like, oh my God, that's nice. And come from her, because she's very kind of close with her emotions. I was like, wow, I'm sure she was in a very, let's say, emotional place to share that. And it was about music. It was literally a music that came along, and she was like, wow.
Yes, it creates unity. And I've always believed that, you can have the biggest differences with individuals, and you find that one piece of music that kind of joins you together, and all of that difference just fades away.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to listen to it like in 20 years time, and you're going to make you go back to that moment that you shared that music for the very first time, or at the moment when you yeah. Next question, John. Let's do it. Okay, next question for you is, what is one movie you could watch over and over again? I'm sure it's going to be connected with music, I'm sure.
Yes and no. I mean, there's a few. I'm a big horror fan. So, I mean, I have to say, I mean, there's probably two that I could probably just watch repetitively. Actually, maybe even three. One for sure is Halloween, and happy Halloween, by the way.
By the way, yeah, we are on the day.
Yes, and I usually make it a point that usually every year I do tune in, and I'm a big Michael Myers fan, so I'm a big fan of the franchise, and I do love all aspects, not just Halloween, but other horror movies as well. But that is ultimately my favorite. There is, and you're probably not familiar with this, but there is an animated movie from the 80s that was called Heavy Metal, which was a lot of cartoon kind of, it was on the rated R side. It wasn't, anything that you would think like Winnie the Pooh. This was adult type cartoon. But mostly for the music, the soundtrack was great. But the movie itself kind of holds a special place in my heart, because I was a young teenager growing up, and it kind of developed me a little bit into that whole musical type thing, and got me a little bit more artsy. And there's another movie from the 80s called The Warriors, which was a big gang movie. And I think in some way it kind of holds a special place, because I used to spend a lot of time in New York when I was a kid. I had cousins that lived in the Bronx, and some still live in the Bronx. And, because of the way that movie was filmed and structured, and, that time frame, late 70s, early 80s, it kind of spoke to me. It was a period in time, that I like to look back on very fondly. So I would have to say those three would probably be my tops. I could watch them on loops. Very
good. Have you watched Halloween today, or are you going to watch tonight?
I will watch it. I will definitely watch it today. It's tradition.
Very good. Next question. Right. Before the next question, as you're saying about your job, how much you love your job, you know what I mean? People connect with you. But what's the most challenging parts you find?
Probably change. I've been a creature of habit since I'm a child. I do like repetition. Today's world, and I don't think this is really specific to what I do because I work in corporate. But even when you work in retail, if you work in, I don't care if hotel, restaurant management, etc., hospitals, there are big change agents now, and technology spins a lot. We go through a lot of changes with what I do, even though a lot of what I do is specific to contractual work and law. But there's always something to do with systems. There's always something to do with the way that, we try to bring product to our customers. I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is really, trying to keep abreast of everything that, changes in the world, and then also being a change agent, and, trying to be somebody that actually contributes to that change so that you can make things easier, not just for yourself, but for your colleagues and for the company.
Good one. Next question for you is, look, this question that came up to you. I'm not gonna, look. What is the soundtrack of your life and why?
Oh boy. Soundtrack of my life. Oh boy. I've made so many like mixed CDs for myself of different types of songs that I like, but if I had to pick like one specific album, or oh my god, this is going to be tough. You know what? I mean, it wouldn't be a specific album, but because I grew up with so much of it, because I have an older brother and older sister. My sister is 12 years older than me. My brother is 14 years older than me. And I grew up with a lot of 60s and 70s music. So Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones, without a doubt, are soundtracks to my life. I mean, I can listen to anything from either band, even the Beatles, and it really takes me back. I mean, I like that. I like going back to when I was really young, like 10 and prior, and remembering the good times, with my parents, with my brother and sister, and growing up in that musical environment. It was wonderful. My father was a musician too, so I've been surrounded by that.
Amazing. Oh wow, very good. I'm glad this question came up to you.
It was a good one. It was perfect.
Very good. Next one, let's do it. Okay, next question for you is, which book had a big influence on you?
Oddly enough, I mean, and considering where we are today, and I think it really probably had an influence on me even before this happened with the pandemic, but The Stand by Stephen King. So multiple elements within that book. It's almost like it was a premonition. He was a prophet of sorts because he saw what was coming. I don't know if you've read The Stand or know anything about it.
I haven't.
Okay. Because they've done miniseries and movies on it. It doesn't do the book any justice, but I mean, ultimately in the end, it was about the end of civilization due to disease, and to survive, they're pitted against each other. It's good against evil. So, I almost feel like in some way or another, we're living that today. So wow. It's a great book. I've read it a couple of times. Definitely, without a doubt, a huge influence on me. Stephen King, just in general, because he's just such a great writer with so much detail.
And what was the biggest message you took out of the book for yourself, for your personal life?
I think the biggest message was the whole kind of half, the ending half of the book, the battle with good and evil, and being brought up in an Irish Catholic household. I went to Catholic school for 12 years. There were elements contained within where you make those connections. You start to understand where religion in some way or another plays a role, even though Stephen King did not make that a big piece of it. It was really just good and evil. But I think that was probably the part that touched me the most, is that realizing that, you know, in this world there are good people with good morals and just overall having, you know, a good sense of self, and then there are people who don't, you know, and really in the end I mean, I think we're all going to end up in the same place, but I ultimately, you know, it is a fight to the finish with life. So, you know, you pick your battles accordingly.
Good. Wow. Good one. Next question, John. Let's do it. Before the next question, when you think about Elizabeth, your hometown, what's the most beautiful memories that comes to your mind?
I things were much more carefree back then. So, you know, Elizabeth is a city, much like New York, not as big. But, you know, it definitely has its attributes. But, you know, being young and growing up in a city like that, and having a lot of friends that you would just, I mean, we could run around the streets until 10, 11 o'clock at night, and, you know, your parents didn't really worry about what you were doing. It was a different time. Those are my best memories, you know, and I still have, believe it or not, I'll just tell you how old I am. I mean, but I turned 53 in June. I still have a good portion of all of those friends from the early 70s.
Wow, amazing.
Today. And that we still talk about the old times. And, you know, one of my really good friends still lives there. And, you know, we catch up, and I go back there. I go back to the old homestead, and I look at my old house and stuff. So it's really nice to, you know, still have that connection to where I came from. It's deep. Yeah.
Good. And you go sometimes often there to visit your friends, or how often?
Yes. I mean, it's not often, because, I mean, believe it or not, it's about an hour and a half drive from where I'm at at the Jersey Shore. New Jersey is kind of a small state, but I mean, it is large in the sense of when you're trying to commute through. I do try to make an effort to get up there as much as I can. I'm up there maybe at least 3 to 4 times a year. I don't ever want to lose that connection. It's where I came from. Yeah.
Well, I think 3-4 times a year is quite a lot. I mean, you know what I mean? Yeah. You commit yourself to the travel.
Yeah.
Right. Next question for you is, what is a negative thing that happened to you that came out as a positive thing in the end?
No, there's probably a lot. Well, I think one thing that I could think about, that when I was a teenager, I had a major surgery. And I was in the hospital for a month. And I was actually in ICU for 9 days. I wasn't really expected to be in the hospital for that long. It was supposed to be a routine surgery for 3 or 4 days, they approximated. But it left me pretty debilitated for a while. So I think that's like the negative piece. But I think the positive piece that came out of that was I realized, like, you know, it changes you as a person, you know. And it wasn't anything like life or death, but it was a situation where I think it helped me to look at things a little bit differently. I think you begin to lose pieces of yourself personality wise, where you look at people like the shallow pieces of things, or, you know, where everything is about appearance's sake, or, you know, you begin to look at things much more about what life is in general, and you know, the bigger meaning of what life is. I mean, it really was a terrible surgery. So, and it brought me close to death a couple of times. So, you know, I have a newer appreciation for life because of that. So the negative, positive attributes, yes, big.
Yes, I think in life sometimes, not sometimes, but when we go through those tragedy, like those moments as you've been through, for sure you see life in a different way when you come out of that challenge time, because you appreciate much more, you know what I mean? You don't take as advantage as we do sometimes, you know what I mean, about life. Sometimes you just go like, okay, life is just so beautiful and so powerful that we need to live in, you need to live, you need to enjoy, appreciate day by day, you know, and life, that's the way, that's how it's meant to be. When I think about life, that's how it's meant to be. You live by the day, you live it, you know what I mean? make memories, to do, you know what I mean, everything you enjoy, make mistakes as well, you know what I mean, that's what we learn as well, so everything counts. But when you go through those tragedy things, that's when you see life in a different way, for sure. Yes. It's a positive way, for sure.
Completely agree with you. Yes, absolutely.
Next question, let's do it. All right, next question for you is, what do you like the most about your best friends?
Okay. Well, I mean, I have a couple. I have a best friend that lives in Florida. We grew up together in Elizabeth. He's been a brother to me. So, you know, ultimately, I think we've always been there for each other with everything. We have such a bond with one another. And he has a great sense of humor. And a way of making me feel comfortable about anything. You know, we could not talk for 6 months and pick up where we left off. I mean, that never really happens, but I mean, ultimately in the end, it's like, I think that's what we look for in relationships. People that, you know, we have a certain comfort with, where, you know, you don't feel that weirdness or that awkwardness when you stop talking, or but he's one, and I mean, one of many, you know. I mean, he's probably my longest friend. We've known each other 50 years now. And I have another best friend that lives in a town that I actually lived in after I lived in Elizabeth, and she's like a sister to me. And it's the same kind of concept. I mean, I could go on all day about, you know, people that, because I have a little clique of best friends, but ultimately I think it comes down to having that friendship, but it's almost family, and that's the way I've always looked at them. They're a second family to me, because they have touched me that much, and they've been such a big part of my life that I can't think of them as anything other than being my family.
Absolutely. Best friends, we don't choose best friend. They come naturally. It's a chemistry there. They happen naturally, you know what I mean? You don't go along, oh, you're gonna be my best friend. It doesn't work like that. Things work like in a very natural way, best friends, relationships.
Correct.
Yeah. John, ready for another one?
I'm ready.
Do it. Okay, before the next one, of course, as you mentioned before about how you appreciate living the place you're living right now, like very close to the sea. But there is any challenge in time, or like what's the most challenge or difficult time of living there?
No, I could think of one in particular. Yeah, well, you know, and it's all part of who I am, but like I said, things are different in New Jersey. It's a much more liberal way of living, and New York is very liberal, and the thought process is different. I ended up meeting and marrying subsequently someone from Staten Island. So I lived in New York for a while, and then we decided to move down here, me and my husband, because his parents live down in a town that's kind of on the outskirts of where we are. People down here didn't seem to take too kindly to our lifestyle. And I shouldn't say, I'm being very general when I say that, because it wasn't everybody. There are still some closed-minded people out there, I'll put it to you that way. And there were people in our neighborhood who I guess had kind of discovered, you know, that we were living together more than just being friends. And they actually had tried to do some harm to us, you know, with different things, like doing damage to our home, slurs, you know, driving by and screaming slurs out the window. And, you know, it got to a point where they actually did hurt us physically. And we actually ended up having to get the police involved. I mean, we tried very hard not to do that for long. We wanted to handle it on our own. And then it stopped. And, you know, oddly enough, our neighbors that were in the immediate vicinity, who we really weren't sure where their thought was, you know, I mean, it's not something you talk about. I mean, we didn't move into the neighborhood and, you know, start blasting people with the fact that we were gay. You know, it's a private issue, and it's something for us. It's like we're not doing harm to anybody. We wouldn't expect anybody to do harm to us. They rallied for us. They actually took like almost like a neighborhood watch, and they were trying to make sure that we were okay. And I mean, some of these people were people that I would have never expected because of their conservative views and kind of their family values. And that's why you can never judge anybody, that you can never say, if somebody's a Bible thumper, or they go to church every weekend, or they do this and they do that, because you don't know what people's, people are people. And really, honestly, I think that brings out the best in people. When they see somebody else getting hurt like that, I don't think they care who you are. I think there's a certain protection there. So, yeah.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. Thank you for sharing this, John. And I believe that, as you mentioned before, about there are so many good people out there in the world. At the same time as well, there's the not, let's say, bad people as well. So I think it's at the end of the day, as you mentioned, that for sure those people who kind of comfort you after the situation, or kind of look after you after that, I think that's what counts and comforts your heart as well. I think that's what sometimes we have help or support from people that you're even not expecting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what it's sometimes makes us feel happy about it. Like more kind of, oh my God, we are receiving some support from people that we never thought that would be from our sides. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing these very personal moments. Thank you very much. I appreciate. Next question for you is, what your ideal life look like? Full of music, for sure.
Yes, and that too. Well, I mean, ultimately right now, I mean, because of the age that I'm at, I feel like I've lived pretty good. I mean, I can't complain. The rest of my life, what I want it to look like, I want to retire comfortably. I want to retire early. My husband and I both want to do that. And we'd like to probably move out of New Jersey and move to Florida and get a new start. That kind of change I'm okay with. I think I adapt pretty well with those types of things. I like to meet people. I consider myself to be pretty social. I think it might be a good time for a change. And plus, I wouldn't mind living in a tropical environment compared to New Jersey. It's great because it is a beautiful state. Don't let anybody kid you with that, because I know when people talk about New Jersey, they're like, oh, it's kind of like a dump, but it's really not. There's a lot of nice sections of New Jersey, but it might be time to move on to something else. One thing I always wanted to do was live in Arizona, and I eventually probably might get property there and then trade time between Florida and Arizona. But that's probably what I'm looking at the rest of my life as, is just being comfortably retired and maybe, enjoying some, quiet time to myself for once.
Very good. Very good. You say about Arizona. Yeah, yesterday on the show, I had a guest from Arizona. He's on the channel. Yeah.
I love Arizona. I love
it. I had 2 or 3 guests on the show for Arizona so far, I believe. Yeah. Okay, John, I have 3 questions left for you, okay?
Okay, yep.
Let's do it. Right, next question for you is, what makes you most uncomfortable about yourself?
Probably the fact that I think I'm an overachiever with certain things, and I never know when to let it go, so I beat myself up. And that's with anything. It's work, it's outside personal stuff, it could be relationships. I do spend a lot of time, actually I've been doing this now for quite a few years. I've had a very big gym life, and I just recently started CrossFit a couple of years ago, and I've been doing CrossFit, which is very intense. And I relate that because if I don't do well with something, I tend to beat myself up, and it does make me uncomfortable. I think it's something inside of all of us, and I think it's the way we kind of temper it off. And I would have to say it's that, the fact that sometimes I'm just never happy in my own skin. I think that's probably the best way to put it, and I think that's why I pushed so hard.
When that happens, just look at the mirror, put your head in your shoulder and go like, you are doing well, John. You're doing very well.
I try. It doesn't always work.
And you see, that's a work I've been working on myself as well. As I understand your point, sometimes we are very hard on ourselves. Sometimes we, you know what I mean? We think that we can do more, we can push ourselves more, we can, you know what I mean? And sometimes I've been working on myself, go like, you know what, William? As I said, it's like you need to put your shoulder, you know, you're doing well, just be kind. I think we need to be kind to ourselves. I think that's the first thing that we need to be aware is being kind to ourselves. I think the first thing that we need to be more aware of, just being kind to ourselves.
Yes, and I agree with that, because it is, we don't really take good care of ourselves. I think we're always focused on other people, or at least I am, and I want to make sure everybody else is happy before me, and that's probably not the way it should be. But
no, they're not gonna be happy if you're not so happy with yourself. So how? Yeah. 2 questions left. Yeah. Let's do it. Right. Before the next one, I would like to tell me, did you always have support of your family being gay?
Yes and no. I mean, my dad passed away before he knew. I think he probably knew, though. My mom didn't react the best in the beginning, and probably because I was mixing and matching relationships. I had a lot of girlfriends. I actually was engaged at one time, and I was finding myself. I think, you know, I was very confused. I still consider myself bisexual to this day, because I'm still attracted to women. I just can't have a relationship with one. There's the emotional attachment is different, and sometimes people don't understand that. It took my mom a little while to get it to understand what it was about, and that, you know, it wasn't this curse. My mom was very old school. You know, my mom was born in 1930. So she came from an era where this was not considered to be normal behavior, or that, you know, it wasn't something. I think a lot of it too was more, she was fearful for me and what kind of the life I was going to have, if I was going to be happy. My brother and sister were fine. I mean, and the rest of my family, I think a lot of them kind of laughed after, and they're like, well, we kind of knew. I think it was just because I was all over the place. It's like I'd have a girlfriend one day and then I didn't, and then I was just off and single again, and then I'd be with this one and be with that one, and then I'd have, you know, guy friends that were a little bit more than just friends, and I think they caught on to different things. But ultimately, I consider myself very lucky. My family is very supportive today. My brother and sister, I couldn't ask for more. I mean, they include my husband and everything, and, you know, I mean, we're like one big happy family. So, you know, I kind of wish that for everybody that, you know, is gay and going through the same stuff. I feel terrible when I hear, you know, horror stories about the way people come out. Yeah. So, yeah.
I think at the time it was your fault. You were confusing your family out with girls and boys.
Yes, there was a lot of that.
I'm joking. Right. Ooh, next question for you is, what was the biggest punishment have you ever received?
Oh my God. The biggest punishment. You know, I think most people relate that to being a child, and, you know, I have to say I never was punished. I was never grounded. I never really did anything that terrible. Well, maybe later on I did, but I think it was too late to punish me for anything. I really can't say that I ever got a really bad punishment from anything. I think I was able to skate through with the fact that if I did do something wrong, my parents were always pretty calm in the effect of talking me through things. I never got a belt. I was never hit. There was no corporal punishment. Wow. I mean, if I'm going to talk about a punishment, I mean, it would probably have come from school. It probably would have been because I went to a Catholic elementary school, and the nuns were absolutely terrible. So they would make you feel terrible. They would say terrible things to you.
Yeah.
So I live with a lot of scars from that. So I would have to say that. I mean, if there was a punishment to be had, it was from nuns.
How funny to say that, isn't it? Like from the
Yes.
I love it. Right, ready for the last one, John?
Yes, I'm ready.
My God, you're so easy answering questions. I could go on and on with you another hour easily.
This is fun. I like it.
Let's go for the last question. Let's do it. Okay, before the last one now, would you like to tell me, for the last 18 months, since the world went upside down regarding the COVID crisis, what's the most positive thing you took out of this challenge journey?
Well, I mean, I can say from experience, I had COVID. I had COVID earlier this year, both me and my husband. Probably not as severe as some. I would say our case was medium, not hospitalized. I think it gave me an appreciation for what people are experiencing with the disease itself. I think, sometimes having been through it, you understand it, and that's the best way to kind of come to terms with what's going on. I think outside of that, pandemic-wise, I think it really did, at least in the beginning, brought people together. And I think we kind of became human again. And it's almost like, I related back to September 11th and the way that people were after the Trade Center went down. And trust me, if there's anybody who knows, I was living on Staten Island when that happened. So I know full hand what that was like. I was right in the thick of it. But the way that people came together, it was kind of reminiscent of what we're dealing with now with the pandemic. I find it sad now. There's all this disparity between people and the vaccinations and, hating on people for not maybe falling into a group where you expect them to be. And, everybody has an opinion. Everybody has the right to live their life that they want to see fit. So, but I think ultimately with the pandemic, I think the good part of it is that it really did ultimately bring people together better. And also having had it, I think that was a good situation for me personally, because I was able to understand a little bit more about what people were going through having had the virus.
See, cool. Last question, John, let's do it. Okay. Oh, I like this question. Which question you wouldn't have an answer for?
I think one question that I always hate that people ask that I don't really like to answer is, do you believe, and believe me, I've been asked this question, do you believe that because of the way you live your life that you might have the possibility of going to hell?
Really?
I don't like to answer that question because it creates a lot of chaos and people probably really wouldn't want to hear my answer anyway because I would just go on. But yeah, I have been asked that question and I usually stay away from it because you're condemning my lifestyle for one, and two, you're damning me, basically by saying that outright. So that would definitely be a question that I would. And
I think if someone would say that to me, I would take as an offense. You know what I mean? Somebody try to offend me somehow. You know what I mean? That's something that you don't ask people around. It's like, wow. Anyway, back to our beginning about bad and good people.
Absolutely.
Okay, John, it's not the end yet. Okay, let's play now the word association game. I'm going to give away some words. Just tell one word that comes to your mind. Quick thinking.
Okay.
It's not going to be difficult for you, for sure. Let's start with politics.
Disparity.
Okay. How about religion?
Overrated.
Love.
Ultimate.
Money.
Evil.
Family.
Important.
Sex.
Pleasure.
Life.
Joy.
How about fear?
Stimulating.
Friendship.
Family.
Okay. Desire.
Want.
Regrets.
None.
Success.
Beauty.
Wish.
Desire.
Happiness.
Life.
Okay. Music-wise, one word for the 60th.
One word.
Yeah.
Hippie.
How about 70s?
Well, that's hard in one word. It's like when I think of the 70s, I think, have a nice day. Smile.
Okay. And the 80s?
Hair.
Okay. One word for Elizabeth, your hometown.
Oh, boy. This is going to sound terrible, but I don't mean it I don't mean it in an offensive way. Ghetto.
Okay. One word for USA.
Patriotism.
And the last one now, music.
Oh. Best.
Okay, great.
Best.
Let's pretend now I'm going to meet your lovely husband for a coffee, and I'm going to ask him, define John in one positive word and one negative word. What he would say.
One positive and one negative. Oh boy. Positive, I would have to say humor.
Okay.
Negative would be definitely depression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Right, let's play now John and the Magic Box, and you can ask me a question. Okay, John, you can ask me a question now.
Okay. And you might have been asked this question before, I'm sure people want to know, but what gave you the motivation or the brainchild to do what you're doing today with the Magic Box? And where did you come up with this idea? And, how did you get started? And, with the whole YouTube thing, like what was the impetus that gave you what you needed to kind of push this thing through? I'm curious.
Okay, do you have another hour?
I figured.
Right. I believe, John, I think this Magic Box, this project, this genuine project, I think it came from a good place that was hidden in me. It was not hidden, it was something that I was looking for it. I lived my life always wondering what I came to this world for. Through my life, I remember meeting people, friends, people around me, when they talk about their, like you're saying about your job, how much they appreciate, they go like, oh my God, I came to this world for that, for this, what I do in life. And I was always asking myself, my God, I would like to have an answer for that. And of course, I could do so many things that I you know what I mean? Like, I think I would be happy doing it, so many things in life. But deep inside, I was like, oh my God, I couldn't answer that. I couldn't answer this question. I was asking myself. So the Magic Box is something that I've always been doing in my life. As a kid, as a teenager, as an adult, I remember when I go holidays with friends, when I meet people like in occasions like barbecues or holidays, going away, I always end up like, oh, tell me something interesting about your childhood. Oh, what do you like the most about your teacher? Or this kind of interaction, yeah? So when I look back, I've always done that. I've always been doing this interaction with people around me. Of course, not on the camera with people around the globe, but with people around me. So as a child as well, as a teenager, when I look back, my God, I never found that. Like I never find an answer for my question regarding, like career or job or something that I would have the pleasure of waking up and going to sleep, thinking about that. Again, back to the COVID situation. Last year, I think a lot of the world was facing a lot of challenge, still facing a lot of challenge, sadness. But at the same time as well, I strongly believe that the people, the human being, they found a lot of creativity, people think that were hidden somewhere. And I'm gonna tell you something now. I felt very when the words started the COVID situation, I found myself in a very dark place. You know, I found myself in with myself that I even didn't recognize myself, because I'm always very positive. I'm always, you know what I mean, I see life in a very positive way. I approach life in a very good way. But I found myself in a place that I felt anxious. I didn't understand what was happening in the world with myself. I literally found myself in a very dark place. And one day I went for a run in the park. You know what I mean? I went for a run in the park one day. I never forget the moment. I was running the park and I was thinking to myself, my God, you know, about life, about, you know, when you exercise, you think about a lot of things, you know what I mean? It's flow up a lot of things. And I remember running the park, and I literally went in the park, and I was already thinking about doing something creative on YouTube or, you know, something different. And this idea just came to my head, and I remember the moment, because it was so powerful that I literally stopped from my run, and I was like, oh my God, that's what I came to this world to do. That's what I want to do. You know what I mean? So this idea is a genuine idea that came from, I always say, from a place that was here, one place that I was looking for an answer about my, you know what I mean, what I came to this world for, what's my think, you know what I mean, what did I come this world for? And this is the answer. This interaction I'm doing right now with the words, with people, so fascinating people like you, people around the globe that participate on the show. I think that's what I came to this world for, to connect with people, to let people talk, share about their lives, share about their experience in life, positivity, negative as well, connect with other people around the globe. So answer to your question, all of that is it's a genuine thing that came as a gift. It's a gift that I have last year that came along in a very dark place, like came along in a very dark place where I wasn't expecting. So yeah, so that's my motivation. I go to bed thinking about that. I wake up every morning thinking about that. It's 24 hours. My life is about that. You know, I have my full-time job, but this is something that I wake up and I go to bed thinking about. And I'm just so grateful to God, to the universe, to everything that if I would see somebody doing that, like on social media or whatever, I would feel like, oh my God, I'd love to be doing that. You know what I mean? If I would see somebody doing that, I was like, oh my God, I'd love to be doing that. So that's something that my genuine answer to you is that's what I love doing it. You know, I could do that for like 24 hours no stop, because it's just so nice to the energy from people. My God, when they share their, you know what I mean, their life, their memories, their desires, their negativity as well, everything for me is just like a bless. And imagine people watching as well. I just keep thinking, my God, imagine people watching that and connect with other people as well. So that's the whole point of the show. It's just connecting about people and sharing their moments in life. You know what I mean? I think people they have so much to share. My God, they have so much to share. And I think that's what the channel is about. It's about sharing your moments in life and connect with people around the globe.
Yes. I'm glad to hear you say that, because I admire you. I really do. I admire you for that. I mean, when you first reached out to me and you were talking about the program, and I thought, you know, because obviously, you know, I see stuff like this all the time, or, you know, I talk to people about, you know, different ideas that they might have, you know, because I think as humans, we're kind of built that way, you know, to kind of like do the best thing for us. We want to make us happy. But I just thought it was such a great concept, and you know, and I know I had told you that when you reached out to me the first time, and I just was really interested in it. And I couldn't wait to look at your stuff and see your interviews, and you know, the way that, you know, you kind of reach out to these people, and you know, they're so willing to share things about themselves. And I think it's important too for the outreach, because you know, when people do see this stuff, you know, they make comparisons, and you know, they kind of relate to a lot of the different things other people say. So you know, you don't feel so alone, or you know, whatever. Yeah. So I think you're doing a great thing.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you go, I'd like to share a positive message or a positive quote, something that inspires you in life.
This is
music. I can see
I know
music.
it's definitely going to be the music thing again, but because I always go back to that, and it's not even quotes that I can even just bring up out of a particular song or whatever. But there is one song that I have listened to quite recently, probably because of different losses that I've had. This was a terrible year for loss for me. And I think one thing that I get out of the song is the fact that, no matter how old we get, there's always that kind of vision of dreaming and, but I think and again, I'm going to be probably bringing up some of the lyrics here, but when you look in the mirror and you see how your face is changing and the lines are becoming clearer, and you begin to realize that you're not the same person that you were, and that time has moved on, and that the older we get, you're going to start to see a lot more of this. I think I've been luckier than most with loss. I've just kind of taken a big beating these past couple of years, but definitely a lot of the lyrics within an Aerosmith song for Dream On, those would be my quotes to live by, because even as a child listening to that song in the early 70s and then listening to it now, it's like it never lost its luster and it's never aged. So those would be my words of wisdom and words to live by, or the words contained within that tune.
Amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that. John, it was a pleasure. Thanks so much for sharing I'm so glad that you're sharing about your love about music and everything. I think it's just so nice to connect, you know what I mean? Music is just a bless as well. I think people, living with music, it's a clever way to live life, you know what I mean? It's a very happy way to live life with music, because it's help us to go through life and to understand life in a better way, for sure.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. All the best. Thank you so much. Regards to your husbands and all the people, your friends, okay? Take care.
Same. Bye.
Bye, so. Take care. So, did you like the show? Don't forget to give a like, share it, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to be part of the show as well, first, subscribe to our channel, and after that, just go to our website, www.williamandthemagicbox.com, and send us a request saying why do you like to be part of the show. And I see you there. Bye bye. See you next time.